Good morning, everybody. This is Bob King Panaris alongside my broadcast partner over there, Brian Cano Senior. Brian, how are you?
Good morning, Bob. Doing well. What a long week, short weekend with a lot
Yeah,
of excitement, huh?
this is a very special edition of D-Backs Weekly Inside the Game. Brian and I are both credentialed media members of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and this is the playoff edition because the Diamondbacks have made the playoffs first time since 2017. Brian?
Bob, yeah, first and foremost, I just wanted to say how appreciative I am of the D-backs organization for, let me cover them. We love doing it. And with that being said, what an amazing season from start to finish thus far. Going into spring training, seeing all these young guys kind of come together with Lavello, Banny, the other coaches, kind of like molding what they knew they had. And then watching the season as it progressed. And of course, there were some moments during the season where even I, as a reporter, was questioning some of their decision making. But at the end of the day, Bob, I was really proud to see, the D-backs get into the playoffs. Wild card, they finished 84-78, 16 games back of the Dodgers, which is the Dodgers are the Dodgers. It is what it is. But let's focus more on the D-backs and what they were able to accomplish. And with that being said, through the highs and lows of a season, through the ups and downs, the injuries, I mean, for me, 162 games later, was it worth it? Yes, definitely. I enjoyed every minute of it. So this is a special edition. Looking forward to talking about not only the little bit about the D-backs, but the upcoming series against the Milwaukee Brewers.
Well, let's just say this. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Milwaukee Brewers have a good team, but more than that, they have a good pitching staff. We've talked about it and mentioned it offline, and even a few minutes here before we even started hitting the record button, is that they do have a good pitching staff, but their hitting isn't all that great.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Now, what's really tough for me to see is the Diamondbacks in this last week have not been hitting the ball at all. Now, worst time in the world that you could go flat in your hitting.
Oh, 100%. We saw a 2-1 game. Again, they're playing the Astros. I do want to talk about it briefly, though, because it was an offensive, some good defense on the Astros part. Take your hat off to the Astros, defending world champions, had it all to play for, AL East Championship, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, the D-backs only scored, I think they got their second run in the series in the eighth inning of the third game. And that's two runs. And I don't think you can win many series doing that. But at the same time, hats off to the Astros for doing what they had to do. But the D-backs have to figure out a way to come out and start swinging the bat, get on base like they did, during a stretch when Marte and Corbin Carroll were just on base, hitting home runs, getting doubles, blah, blah, blah. I get that. They can't do it all the time. But if they can pull it off in a couple of games in a series, who knows? There's a possibility. But like you said, Bob, the Brewers finished with the best ERA in baseball. They're hard to score on. They've got some good pitching. We can talk about individual pitching if you want to talk about who, they got Burns, Woodruff, and this Peralta young guy. And all three of them are very, very talented. So the D-backs are going to have their hands full at the plate. I hope that they decide that it's best to be aggressive, but also take let's have this philosophy. Let's put it in play against these guys. Let's not let them strike us out. We're going to make them earn each out, and that's what I'm going to be looking for during the series. Is not as much slug, but more balls in play. What about you, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how to get the hitting going again. I mean, we've seen it all year, right? We've seen it all year. They've gone into these, I'll call it a team slump. And we've been calling for the heads of the hitting coaches for a long time now. And I was looking at the roster the other day, and sorry to digress a little bit, and they have like 4 hitting coaches. It's like, what? 4 hitting coaches?
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're all with the major league team, but if they are, oh my God, what's going on? Um, I would be all over my hitting coaches and saying, and be working extra hard and saying, what's going on? I mean, um, why does a team like this get into these these long slumps?
Yeah.
This is not the right time to go into a hitting slump. Now, granted, let's talk about the other things. This is overall a very young team. They're going into the playoffs for the first time. The majority of them, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
there are
yeah,
very
of
few
course.
guys. There are very few guys in this team that have playoff experience. I mean, we can figure that out. We got Longoria, right?
Yep.
Who
Probably
doesn't
Fam.
play? Who doesn't play every day? We got Fam. Uh, Walker probably has some from the early days of the Diamondbacks, earlier days, right?
Right.
Um, and I'm going around now, and I don't think I'm not sure. Was Marte here in 17?
I think Marte was here. I'm pretty sure, but he was barely here. Like you said, he was in the beginning.
Yeah,
I'd have
yeah,
to check
yeah.
into that, but I think he was here. I think he had two
It,
triples in one game, like me and the
okay,
only at the time, the only player ever to do that, or one of the
right.
only players to ever hit two triples in the same
So,
game.
so if he was, so here we are. Oh, on the pitching staff,
Yeah,
no one.
yeah, and nobody.
Well, is there anybody in that pitching staff that has any kind of playoff experience? I don't think so.
Kelly, Gallen, and Fat are the three scheduled starters. So at this point, I'm going to say no. I want to say that
Yeah,
they're breaking in, and this is going to be it for their, and let me just hit on that a little bit while you're look at the D-backs and you. We've talked about this. Have been in the playoffs, now 6 times. This is their seventh, and game one starters in 1999. It was Randy Johnson in an NLDS, and then in
yeah,
2001 it was Kurt Schilling. 2002 was again Randy Johnson. 2007 it was Brandon Webb. In 2011 it was Ian Kennedy. In 2017 it was Zach Greinke. And tomorrow, excuse me, Tuesday, it's going to be Brandon Pfaadt. So again, I know that the coaching staff has a lot of confidence in Pfaadt. They're giving him the ball. You and I both have been skeptical, and I think that it's well-deserved skepticism. Sometimes he has it, sometimes he doesn't. But now we're
right.
talking about a game that's super duper important. Obviously, the winner of game one more than likely will win this series, and that's my opinion.
All right. Well, I'm going to be checking out the back of his uniform tomorrow because I think he might get poopy pants. So,
Poopy pants.
you know the
The Taco Bell effect. Excuse me. Ugh, never mind. I get it. No, it's definitely a moment for him that he's gonna have to collect his thoughts and go out and just do what he does, and at the same time realize the moment. It's a very specific moment, and again, I think that with Lavello and I just wish Tommy Henry would have been available. That's all. Tommy Henry might have been a good fit for this game with him going on the IL, month or so ago. Kind of took that option off the plate.
yeah,
But it is what it is,
th-
right?
yeah, there were a lot of guys. I mean, um, I, what can you say? You can only do what you can do. I mean, the stars didn't align right for the Diamondbacks now, and I'm going to give some ifs, right? If they would have won the Friday night game against against Houston, then they would not have started Merrill Kelly in I'm sorry, in game number 2 of the Houston series. He would have been game number 1 of the Milwaukee Brewers series coming up, the wild card.
Yeah, no,
But
game of
those,
inches.
but those are ifs. The thing, it is a game of inches. Moreno literally almost hit a 2-run home run by probably missed it. I thought by 6 inches
Yeah,
of tying up that game the other night. But
yeah,
you know what? Those are the ifs. And the thing is, we are at where we are at, right?
right.
We got Brandon Pfaadt. Now, how does a Strom, how does a Strami get this kid settled down to go out there and pitch his game.
Yeah, no,
And I think the key to this game, and as I'm thinking about it, is going to be this pitching coach. I think they need to have a well-defined plan going in. And of course you always have to execute, right?
no,
Pfaadt
100%.
can't be laying balls in the middle of the plate to a Christian Yelich, who I'm sorry, he may have had a decent year. He's still at the back end of his career.
Right.
Um, and let's not forget about the rest of the team.
Yeah.
They're major league hitters, right?
Right.
You can't put lollipop balls in there in a strike zone to major league hitters.
Yeah.
So the thing is, Strom, you're going to be my guy this game. If you can, some way you can settle him down, then the Diamondbacks are going to be okay.
Settle the ship. I get it, man. It's an important job to do that, because unless you've been there and done that, more than likely it's tough to really have any perspective at all. And I'm kind of hoping that he doesn't have any perspective and goes into the game as if it was a game where he's going to follow the lead of his coaches and follow a game plan. Because in some instances, it's always good. In some cases, you can be a hard thrower and win some ball games. But in this case, I think that Pfaadt has to be a pitcher and go out there and throw to locations, get ahead in the count, pound the zone early, get early outs, get fly balls, ground balls, and then use his curveball or his cutter or his slider, his off-speed pitches to keep him off balance enough to keep the score down, to get a guy like Ginkel maybe in there to get the seventh or the eighth, and then get Seawald to close it up. But because I got let's face it, the Brewers, I think they're entering the playoffs as they have a 705 OPS, I think. And for me, I think that's one of the lowest in the playoffs. So if it was me to have play the Brewers or the Phillies, I think the D-backs scored a little bit here by having, I hate to say it, but you're going up against Corbin Burns, guys like I think he's the equivalent of Gallant Arizona to the Brewers. He had 200 strikeouts this year, 1.07 WHIP. He pitched, I think it was 193 innings. I think he went 10-8 this season. But
right.
But he's phenomenal. He's got a lot of movement on his pitch. Peralta in the second half of the season, he's stepped it up, and he's doing obviously performing at a very high level. So my thing is that I'm expecting a pitching duel for the games that are there. I don't know about this first one though. That's for me the question mark is, how will Pfaadt respond to the pressure? And you nailed it. I think by listening to his coaches, not doing some of the things that he might normally do, but actually following a game plan specific to each individual batter. And then the defense, of course, Bob, let's face it, the D-backs don't make a lot of errors. They've got to play above the norm and not tight, play loose, but understand what's at stake. No mistakes, literally.
Exactly. I think the Diamondbacks defense is really, really good. Take yesterday's game out of the equation.
Right. Yeah.
But they play their game defensively, they'll be okay. I'll go out and say whoever wins game 1 will win this series. Period. I mean, if the Diamondbacks can come through and win game number 1, I think that they will win this series.
Yeah, no, I think we're both going to go on that limb. I think that I said it a minute ago, and you're saying it now as well. But at the same time, it's not easy to say, Bob, because when you're saying this, you're really not really putting the overall big picture in front of what's small. The smaller picture is one individual player, and can they follow a game plan to the extent that it enables the D-backs to go into the latter innings in a close ball game to put into the hands of a relief pitching staff that has been doing fairly well toward the end of the year, and then plate 2 runs, maybe 1, if that's what it takes to win the game. And like you said, if they win, if the D-backs can pull off an upset win, in my case, it'd be an upset in game 1, the likelihood of them winning this series climbs for me, at least, I'm talking as high as 75% that they can win one of 2 games with Gallen and Merrill Kelly going. Coming off their latest performances against I know they lost, but they both pitched pretty good against the Astros,
They
and I
pitch
thought they
very,
deserved
they
better.
pitch very, they pitch very good.
Yeah.
And we'll remind our viewers that the games are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday,
Yes.
if necessary. And it's on all the games that I saw, I believe, are on ESPN2.
Yeah.
And I know the first couple of games, I don't know if all of them start at the same time, but it looks like they start about 4 o'clock or so, Arizona time.
Yeah, I got a press release from MLB. I think it mentioned that there may be some changes on Game 3 because nobody knows if there's going to be Game 3s in any of the
Right.
series. But with that being said, I'm 99.9% positive that the first two games are going to start around 4 o'clock, Arizona time, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken, 7 o'clock Eastern. So I'm looking forward to watching before I just want to point out a couple of things with the D-backs offense before we get too far ahead into the next game. But their offense really, Bob, wasn't as effective as I would have liked it to have been throughout the season. But I think there's a possibility that can they can get hot here. And again, we could talk more about Marte and Carroll, but I'm talking about Christian Walker, who had 582 at bats and he hit 258 with a slugging of he hit 497 under 500 slugging percentage and an OPS of 830. And I tell you what, that's as good as it gets for the D-backs right there. He needs to step up in this next game and be the Christian Walker that, finds a way to get that pitch that he likes and drives it to the outfield somewhere, whether they catch it or not. It's not important. Just getting his bat back into the mix. I think he's going to be the key, Bob, frankly, one of the keys to the success of the D-backs. I'm not putting it all on Christian Walker, but for this series, in this specific game 1, I am. I'm going to say Christian Walker needs to step it up and come in clutch and get a couple of pitches to hit and rope them, get them out there, see what happens.
Yeah, it's always interesting though in playoff baseball, and you've watched it all your life like I have, right?
Right.
It always seems to be the unknown player or the unexpected player who comes through, doesn't it?
Yeah, man.
I mean, these guys wind up becoming stars during this time.
Yeah.
So, and as we go through the lineup, it could be a guy like Perdomo, who lately hasn't been doing anything, but it could be a Perdomo that gets that huge hit.
Yes.
I'm just throwing names out there, right?
Yeah.
As I go through the lineup, who are guys that haven't? It could be an Alec Thomas,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
The thing is, in playoff baseball, we just never know, and we've seen it for all these years that guys who you wouldn't expect to come through.
That's what I'm looking for as well, but again, at the end of the day, the ones that have been at the plate the most, the ones that have had the most practical experience this season, being, Carroll is one of them. Him and I believe Walker and Marte had the most at bats this season. I think Carroll had 565 and Marte was around 570, 569, I think. But at the same time, those guys have seen enough pitching and they're ready to go for the playoffs. And I really think that those guys need to step it up. And of course, I mean, that goes without saying. Anybody you're a genius. No, it is the truth. This time they really need to step it up and get on base.
Right. I understand your point. But here I'm going to mention one guy in Diamondbacks history who is one of the greatest baseball players around, won the MVP for the Cardinals a couple of years ago. And I know him very, very well. Paul Goldschmidt. He was the worst he is the worst playoff baseball player I have ever seen. He is horrible. Wow. He can't do a darn thing in playoffs. And that's the thing that I'm saying. It could be, it's these guys with the unknown factor who key in, who hone in. Yeah. Here's one of the greatest in Paul Goldschmidt will probably make the Hall of Fame, but he'll go down as one of the worst playoff baseball players that ever was.
Wow. That says a lot. You were around to see it firsthand, when he was with the D-backs.
Listen, listen, I like the guy. I helped him with his charity bowling tournament, right? He's a great human being, right? But when it comes to playoffs, he's a 100 hitter.
Wow.
Let's call it the way it is.
That's an interesting angle. I wonder whether or not it was the pressure of the playoffs at the time. Well, whether we didn't throw it. I don't know. That's an amazing.
Even with the Cardinals when they made the playoffs,
Wow.
nothing. Every time with the Diamondbacks, nothing.
Just shut down, huh?
Listen, I'm just saying it's these unknown guys. And that's what makes baseball so fun, right, Brian? We've been around it for all these years.
Yeah.
That's what makes baseball interesting.
Yeah.
Now, do we believe that the Diamondbacks, and now I guess that's the whole thing. Do we believe that the Diamondbacks can win this? In my opinion, against the Milwaukee Brewers, my opinion is no. Would I like to see them win? Of course. I mean, we've been around the Diamondbacks. I've been around the Diamondbacks for 20 some odd years, right?
Right.
Of course I'd like to see them win.
Yeah.
Realistically, I don't think they have the talent quite yet to win it. And they definitely don't have the pitching in game 1 to win it.
No, 100%. I like
your
that.
Thoughts?
I like
Your
that.
thoughts?
I think that what you're saying is essentially, they're going to need to do something above the norm to win this series. Now, of course, if they're able to just play the games the way they have been recently, they have very little chance of beating the Brewers in a 3-game series. Right. However, if they can play like we know that we've reported the good and bad this season, when the players that we specifically singled out today are playing at their best and playing 100% and getting the little things done, the team is susceptible to winning. And I read this morning that Arizona is not the most dominant team in the playoffs by far. But even somebody said they may even be the weakest on paper, just due to their age and whatnot, for a lot of factors. But the playoffs are incredibly fickle, this writer wrote, and there's enough there to win games. So with that being said, their young core might not feel the weight of the postseason, and that could make them super dangerous. And I read this from a very reputable journalist that thinks very highly of the D-backs, but at the same time recognizes that they're up against some variables that all young teams, when they make the playoffs, like you said earlier, for the first time, get that first bite of playoff experience. We'll see how they respond. And again, we're just being realistic. And Pfaadt's got his hands full. It is what it is.
Right. If the hitting, if they can get on base and they can cause, as they like to use now the word chaos on the base pass, like they did most of the season, they can give teams fits. They can frustrate teams. And so the only thing, Brian, is all we can say to our viewers as we go ahead and wrap up our special edition this week is watch the games, pull for the D-backs, and hope for the best.
Bob, I'm 100% behind you on that. And I'll tell you this much before we chime up. I'm looking forward to going back to Chase and seeing some more baseball. That would be phenomenal. Because the D-backs have 3 road games. They're all going to be in Milwaukee, and it's going to take more than likely 3 games to do this. And with that being said, I sure would like to see the D-backs and the Dodgers, it looks like, going at it in the NLDS here at Chase Field. So, yeah, watch the D-backs, encourage, send them the mojo. They're going to need it. And let's go D-backs and win some close games. What do you say?
That's it. Let's do it. You wrap it up today. We're going to switch it. We're going to switch this thing up.
Now, on behalf of Bob Kingpin Harris and myself, we're going to wrap up this edition of the D-backs Weekly Inside the Game. It's a special edition, playoff edition, and folks, go D-backs. So, Bob, take care. We'll see you.
Take care, everybody.